Okay, today's video we're going to talk about dynamic phone numbers and why they're mandatory if you're going to make any serious money with Google ads, Google search ads, or any other Google ads that you're running on Google Display Network or on YouTube, which is obviously you get both of those on both of those networks through the Google Ads platform as well. So it's very, very important that you understand what the dynamic phone numbers do to get you the results on your campaign. Now this doesn't apply to every single business, but quite a few. This will definitely apply to you if you fall into any one of these three categories. First of all, if you just are relying on generating leads, because either you do a two-step sales process or one. If you're doing two-step, that means you have to get a phone call or a contact form fill, which then eventually turns into a sale. If you're doing that versus just people have to go through your cart and buy or nothing, and you normally, basically don't talk to them at all, then you need dynamic phone numbers to get the results that you're actually looking for. You're going to get 1/10 of the results that you need if you are generating leads if you don't have dynamic phone numbers working on your Google Ads campaign. Furthermore, second category would be people that close sales over the phone. So if you're taking a credit card number over the telephone to close a e-commerce sale. So for you guys that are doing e-commerce, if somebody can call you and you take the card over the phone, or they call you and you put the credit card through your website for them or on behalf of the customer, you need the dynamic phone numbers because that's going to drop a bunch of your conversion data about what ads are working in order to get more results over time, so that you can, of the sales that you're getting, the ones that specifically come as a result of a phone call, get counted inside your ad account so you can see what ads are driving those sales. Because 80% of what you're doing in Google Ads is not effective. 20% is without conversion data, specifically what calls, from people calling in and then ordering that way or starting with a call. You need that data to know what ads are working or what are not working, because otherwise your ads will just forever not be profitable. And the part of the account that you have that does work above average, you want to be able to double, triple, quadruple, quintuple down on that part of your account. You can't do it without all the data. The third type of business who needs dynamic phone numbers to make a real good, proper amount of money with Google Ads is for people that are selling something basically over $100. So for the e-commerce guys and gals, again, if you sell something for over $100, first of all, you need to have a phone number on your site, because a certain percentage of people will not do business with you if you don't have a phone number on your site. And it's significant. We're talking about 10 to 20% of the people, because they want to talk to somebody before they buy, and they also want to make sure that if something goes wrong, they need to return their order, whatever, that they have a throat to choke. It's way too hard to put pressure on a company for a refund if all you can do is email that company. And it also just shows what kind of company you are. Person that doesn't want to talk to their customers and spending several $100s on an item shows that you're not to be trusted in the first place. Sorry if that's you, but it's not coming from me. We've done these audits for other clients in the past. We know what this is. So if you're expecting to just sell something to people and you don't ever have to talk or deal with them over the phone at all, only through email, sell something that's, $20. Because at that point, nobody gives a shit. Sometimes they'd like to call, but they're not going to make a big fuss over a $20 item. $200 item, totally different story. So if you're one of these businesses with one of these general situations, then you need dynamic phone numbers, as they allow you to see which keywords, ads, etc. drive your sales, so you could get the kind of ROI that you want from your ads, and more importantly, that you could scale the ad account over time. So you could constantly increase your sales on the back of the ad strategy that you come up with and ads that you're running for your company on Google search, Furthermore, on YouTube, eventually, if you're maxing out already on Google search and then also on Google Display Network, which also works if you know what you're doing. You should definitely watch my other videos on this channel about how to do ads there. I've written a whole book just on the subject of making display ads work via, you can find, which of course you can find on Amazon. But with that said, dynamic phone numbers, okay, make it possible to track multiple people on your site at the same time, as well as determine exactly when users hit the site, which makes it possible to be able to tell which ads drove your sales that you were getting, what keywords drove the sales that you were getting, assuming that the phone was some part of the journey from, starting the process of through clicking the ad and then eventually buying. Because the way that this basically works is normally people, if they're going to track a phone call and they're going to track a phone call to make sure their ads work on Google Ads, they'll put a tracking number on the site, and then they know if somebody calls, and when they call, it's supposed to be a special number that's on their site or not, basically, and they're just running Google Ads and they're not doing anything else. They kind of know, oh, okay, I got this many calls basically for my Google Ads, which is the really dumb way, an archaic way to do tracking of an ad campaign, any ad campaign, but especially Google Ads. What you need is a dynamic phone number system so that if somebody comes to the site, a phone number is going to be displayed to them, a tracking number. And if somebody else, a second person comes to your site at the same time as that initial person that came to your site, then they see a new phone number, which distinguishes one person from another, so that if they end up calling, you know the traits that this person had versus the traits this person had, and can do an unlimited amount of simultaneous tracking of users on your site at the same time. Furthermore, this dynamic phone number system you put a tracking code on your website, and when somebody hits your site, what this tracking code does is it looks at all the traits of the user that it can pick up, sends that to your call tracking provider like CallRail. I recommend CallRail, stores it, and then later on, if that person goes ahead and purchases, right, you can actually take the information that the call tracking provider picked up on that user, sends it back to Google Ads, and then you can now see which ads, what keywords that initially that user clicked on in order that led to that particular sale, so you can actually improve and scale your ad account over time. And basically, if the tracking number is on your site and it was just a regular old tracking number, you could only tell if somebody called or not from a Google ad. With the dynamic system that basically only shows the number to the user once they hit the page, so it's actually, the tracking number is not actually on your page, it actually only shows up for the user on their web browser when they hit your website. That essentially then makes sure that the system that your call tracking provider like CallRail has, or CallRail or another call tracking provider, knows when a new user is on your site, and to pick up the information, the metadata about that user, because you got a new user on the site, so to say. So in other words, it doesn't know anybody's on your site to collect anything from that person, because it just basically doesn't. Whereas if it's the system set up to show a number when somebody hits the site, it can actually pick up information about that user. So it basically calls home when that tracking number shows up for the user when that user hits the site. It ultimately, like I said, if somebody hits your site, the system's set up to collect all the information about that user, put it into a database that the call tracking provider has, hold on to it, and then if that person buys, it sends that information back to Google Ads, basically. And if they don't buy, then you ultimately know that they didn't buy, and what if they clicked on an ad that it didn't result in a purchase, and then this all goes into getting your long-term results on your ad account. So call tracking you use CallRail for your company, not if you have one of these things going on, but for sure if you have one of these things going on, because having even a small leak in your tracking data will have great implications for your long-term results, because again, you got to know the 20% of your accounts that's working to create a scalable strategy so you can build up a multi-million-dollar ad campaign on Google for yourself, knowing exactly what worked and didn't work. If you do have this system set up to track users who are going to call to inquire, or they're going to call to put orders up through the phone, or they're going to call prior and leading up to a purchase that they are going to buy online still, but they're going to initially reach out and contact you and ask questions, which, by the way, with this one, the reason why, even though you could track purchases through the cart and see and track your purchases and which ads people clicked on that led to a purchase that way, the reason why it's over $100, just to clarify on this, is because the higher the purchase price of the item that you sell, the longer the average time it's going to take from the time that somebody initially comes to your website to buy. They call that the sales cycle window length. And so if you're selling something over $100, the likelihood that person that is going to buy on the same initial visit is very low. We're talking about like 20%. So with that said, but they'll usually call right away, or at least pretty often call right away. So if you pick up the data about whether somebody called or not, at least, you're going to get data, a lot more data than if you just simply waited for them to order, because given that person is going to order, it's probably going to get attributed to something else besides Google ads, because ultimately they come to your site, they research, they come back a couple weeks later when they get paid to buy. When they come back to buy, they don't click on an ad, they go ahead and they type your brand name into Google and they find your site, and then the system gets confused. It thinks that they came to Google and typed in your brand name and clicked on the organic listing on Google. That's what drove the sale, not the original ad where they found you, so to say. And even though the system is supposed to be intelligent enough to know that 2 weeks ago they clicked on an ad and that's the ad that actually drove the sale, the reality is a good 40% of the users are going to switch devices or locations before they buy. They're going to find you initially at work, they're going to buy from home, or vice versa. Or they're going to start out researching your company and through their desktop computer, and then initially or eventually buy on their phone. And this is where the tracking gets screwed up, so to say. So that's why you want to track initially whether they called or not. Even though that call didn't lead to a purchase, you at least have quality information to indicate whether the ad you ran is likely to lead to a purchase, because that in itself will give you enough information to basically guide your ads and see what ads work versus what not work, and what to double, triple down on, and what to do less of, to kind of reallocate the ad budget you have at any given time to what's producing results, and then when your ROI is high enough, to scale your results. So that's specifically why when you sell something over $100, regardless if you have a cart that can track people that click on an ad and buy, why you need to have the call tracking set up, and specifically with the dynamic phone numbers itself. So if you do have if you're in one of these three situations and you do dynamic phone number tracking, what you'll ultimately end up having is you'll be able to see on a variety of different levels whether somebody bought or didn't buy. And before I list all this off, and it goes beyond this list, if somebody ends up buying over the phone, by the way, you can actually, through the call tracking provider like CallRail, that is one call tracking provider, you can actually go into your accounting program, see the name of every person that purchased in the last 30 days, whether they came from an ad, whether they didn't, it doesn't matter, that. You could go into CallRail and listen to the call recording of every call that came in that says it came in from Google Ads or elsewhere, if you will, which that part isn't actually relevant in itself. And when you find, because on the call they'll say, when they order, they'll say, John Smith, here's my credit card information, what have you, right? And so ultimately, you could so to take a step backwards here, if they ordered through the phone itself, you can actually listen to the call recording. If you see that that call led to a sale, immediate sale, you can get something called a GCLID code, which is like a unique serial number that's tied to every person who clicks on an ad. You feed that number back into Google Ads system through what is called the offline conversion tracking and upload process, and then they know, oh, I know who that is. They actually clicked on this ad, they typed in this, and so forth. So even though they didn't purchase through the site shopping cart, they purchased through the phone, it still knows what ad drove the sale. Furthermore, if they called and you talked to them, and then ultimately you put the order through for them over the phone, then it's the same thing. You can actually listen to the call and go, oh, that was the call where basically that I put the order through the phone for the customer, and then you take the code that's stored and picked up by CallRail, plug that number back into Google Ads, and then ultimately you can see, okay, this ad actually did drive a sale, even though I put the order in through the customer from myself. Ultimately, this actually came from Google Ads, so Google Ads, I want that customer's order to show up in my account so I can see what ad and so forth drove that sale for my long-range planning and optimization of my Google Ads account. And so, of course, if they call and you just want that, whether or not, the confirmation that that person calling to show up in your ad account, that can all be done automatically. Whereas, whether or not they purchased or not, and then piping the fact that a purchase happened through the phone to your account, that's a manual process for the most part, unless you get a CRM system going like Salesforce, which you link to your Google Ads account. But bottom line, there's ways to automate that as well. And so it doesn't matter ultimately if they purchase through the phone or they purchase through the cart, all that tracking data gets fed into Google Ads. There's no gaps in your data, which makes massive differences in how much money you're going to make in your ad account over time. And for people that are selling something for over $100, you got quality information to see, because it usually takes a while for people to order, that whether they called or not, given that you'll find basically, or if you didn't know, if they call, that person's like 10 times more likely to buy something. So if you were to optimize for visitors that would call, you would ultimately, fundamentally be working to get the part of the account that doesn't result in eventual sales to weed it weeded out of your account. So when you feed all this data back into your ad account, you'll be able to see where the sales are coming from. If they made a purchase over the phone, by the way, and you take that GCLID code and you feed it back into your ad account, you can feed it in not only the fact that they purchased, but how much they spent too, by the way. So you can, just like with the cart tracking, you can see, okay, this ad produced this many transactions and this much revenue, and here's the ROI when you divide the revenue that this particular ad this particular ad generated divided by the ad spend. Here's the ROI that the campaign generated. Then you obviously can then tell what the ROI is for this ad versus this ad, and then, it's this ad here that we want to use, not the other two, because it normally generates the most ROI and so forth. But you don't do that just on the ad level. The reason why you're going to make millions of dollars long-term more than what you would otherwise without this additional phone tracking, dynamic phone number tracking when you have one of these three business types, is because you can see whether somebody bought or didn't buy and how much they spent and how much the ROI was on all these different levels, which most people don't use. You can manually optimize which ad gets used versus other ads that you're testing yourself. But Google's own system, their algorithm that decides if an ad is shown for a certain search or not shown, because they actually have an algorithm that determines what you offer is relevant for their people, and more specifically what people it's relevant for, to make sure that users that use Google get a better experience on an ongoing basis. So if people like what they see when they make a specific search, they are more likely to click on your ad and buy. They want to show your ad more for that particular user. and they also want to reward you by making you pay less. And so when you feed the system that Google Ads has quality information about who's buying and not buying, they know how to get you more customers for a cheaper rate on an ongoing basis. You can also use the data to make revisions on your end that will help the algorithm ultimately get to that conclusion quicker, better, faster as well. But you'll be able to see yourself as an advertiser if you want to help Google's own ad algorithm system get more customers at a cheaper rate on an ongoing basis, because you're building up more and more conversion data in your account. The more data that you build up, the more certainty you as the advertiser, as well as Google's ad system and algorithm, knows exactly where the customers are hot and where they're not. You can see physically in your account yourself which ads have drove what sales and at what ROI, which keywords have drove what sales at what ROI, what devices, whether that's mobile device, desktop device, tablet, TVs now also is included in that, what drove what sales and what ROI, genders, male versus female, also the age of the user, the income status of the user or income level or income demographic of the user, parental status, whether they're a parent or not, the time of the day, what the ROI is for one time of the day versus another time of the day of the week, what ROI of one day of the week versus another, the ROI of one city that the user's in that's clicking on your ad versus another, or state or country if you want to add that in as well. The interests that the prospect or customer has had versus not had, as well as their affinities. To give you a direct example there, it's like people who like fishing. If somebody likes fishing, are they more or less likely to click on my ad and actually turn into a purchase? You can, through the audience menu in your Google Ads account, put in observances like that, as they're called, and see just how it works out. And you'll find in some instances when you add enough of these different observances, that there'll be certain things about your customers that it makes it 2 or 3 or 4 times more likely that they're going to go on to buy if they have that particular interest or affinity itself, so that you can narrow down your ads. This is why it's not a matter of if you can get results with Google Ads, it's a matter of when. When do you have enough conversion data built up that says what works versus what doesn't work to get you any level of ROI that you want, essentially speaking. So you can put in there, I want to know if people that fish are more or less likely to buy. I want to know if people that drink coffee are more or less likely to buy. And then you put in like 500 different individual interests like that, and then ultimately just see where the chips land in terms of, are they more or less likely to buy if they're also including one of these traits. And furthermore, you can go into the audience insights menu and see how different people that come to your site, which traits they have more or less of, because they give you that data for free. You can also take your customer list that you have, all their email addresses, and upload that to Google, and they'll kind of tell you, so you know which ones to start monitoring and put it into your campaigns, so that you can eventually figure out what interests to do more of or less of. Because ultimately, when you find something like our customers are more likely to buy, like 3 times more likely to buy if they like drinking coffee, then you could say, Google, I want to spend twice as much money if they drink coffee. And you'll get more action on Google search results for your keywords when they drink coffee, given that there's no guarantee if you bid on a keyword that you show up 100% of the time for that keyword, or as high in the list of ads, which gets you more clicks the higher you are. So where you're making the most money, you can double, triple down, and then of course you can just do less of where you're making less money. No, you might find out, like I said, people that like football, they buy at 25% of the rate of the average click that I'm getting. And so I want to just get rid of that, or tell Google I'm willing to pay 75% as much as what I was paying before for somebody who likes football. And then that will eliminate that inefficiency in your account. So that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about there. So also you can find out what people that are in market for certain things. If you're selling granite countertop installations and the person is in market for home renovations, you might find they're 3 times more likely to buy if they're already in market for home renovations when they search for granite countertop installation. That seems kind of like, obvious, but Google has thousands of classifications for their users. And so if they're in market for something they're looking to buy, it might be something totally different. You might find, which we've had this literal thing, that somebody's more likely to buy a locking mailbox if they're looking to renovate their house itself. So ultimately, all this data becomes available to you, and it can be relied on if you have the right and complete data coming into your account. So things that the people are in market for to buy or looking to buy, you can separate that out based upon what they're looking to buy and see if that actually should be eliminated. You do more or less of it if that person has that individual thing. You can also bid more or less based upon the person if they've been to your site before, because they're going to be more likely to buy if they've been to your site before. They also are more likely to buy if they've been to your site and were on their site at least 3 minutes, or have visited at least 3 different pages on your site. And so you ultimately can bid quite a bit more, so you make sure to have your ad, it's shown almost 100% of the time for different people that have been on your site at least 3 minutes for the keywords you're bidding on, to get the most out of the keywords that you're bidding on in your market without going over the threshold where you start losing money because your ROI is going below a certain level that you need to be profitable with at your business. You can also see exactly if somebody's been on your competitor's site, how much that affects the ROI of your keywords. And you could do it that way. You can also do the same thing if they made a similar search before. Every single time somebody makes a search for, going back to the granite countertop installation business again, if somebody searched for granite countertops in the recent past, and then they're looking for a granite countertop installer, they're going to be more likely to turn into a customer if they made that previous search than if they only just made the search right away. Because a person that's done more quality research prior to saying that they were looking to buy something will actually increase the likelihood that they're actually going to go forward with the purchase. Because there's quite a few people that make a search in your market that never go on to buy because they were just thinking about it. But the more time that they've researched, obviously, the more likely they are going to be to buy, because the more time that they've invested into the research process just makes them statistically more and more likely to buy. So you can actually tell Google, hey, I want to monitor the people that have made a related search in the past, and I want to bid differently if they made a previous search. So you could kind of basically see, and this goes on and on and on. So the person that has the most high quality data accumulated in their account is going to be the one that basically wins the game of trying to extract value from the people searching on Google on a regular basis in your market. So you can win by having the most data. You could also win by having the highest quality data. Quality data by itself with not enough volume isn't everything. But when you marry the two of having more data than your competitors and having a higher quality data itself, because you're tracking phone calls and the sales related to those phone calls that come in and plugging that into your account as well, given 20, 30, 40% of the sales in your market either come through the phone directly, or you put the order through for the customer directly for them on your website after they call, or you sell something that's expensive that normally takes a long time of the person mulling over their purchase. You end up with a major advantage over your competition. And then on top of that, your competitors are not going to be thinking about how to use this information that you're picking up to optimize your ads. Google's going to do it for them, but they're not going to have the quality data coming in. You're going to have the quality data coming in, and you're also going to know that you can go in there and figure out, things about your customer itself, like traits, quirks, whatever, and then monitor whether the people, how much more they convert if they have these individual traits, quirks, whatever. So that's pretty much it. So dynamic phone numbers, make sure that somebody comes to the site, a unique number, whatever number is on your website by default, another number shows up, a tracking number, so that when the person sees that tracking number, the call tracking provider system that you're using knows a new visitor's on the site, knows the specific information about them, and then if they call, they also know they called. And then that information later on, whether they buy or not buy, gets then passed back to Google because you got the system set up. More than one visitor's on the site, different visitors that are on the site at the same time all get different numbers so that the call tracking system can distinguish each person from one another. And that's completely reverse or opposite than having an individual tracking number on the site, which just simply says somebody called from Google Ads, but you don't have all this information about the user. All you know is somebody, out of all the clicks on Google Ads today, this is how many calls you got. And that's basically worthless as it comes to Google Ads, or it's 1% of the value that you're going to get by having the dynamic numbers so you can track all the rest of this information about the user. That's the significance itself to your company, and you will make a pile of money if you go ahead and go with the approach that you're gonna, before you spend serious money on your Google Ads, you're gonna set up the tracking that I mentioned here with your call tracking, if you fit one of these 3 requirements, and you're gonna start building up data so that every dollar you spend, you get the other half of the value of that dollar that you're spending, every dollar you're spending, because you're picking up the data. And if you're not getting the return you want now, you'll eventually get it. And if you do get a return now, you'll get way more of a return because you're pulling in the maximum amount of data to your account that's going to tell you how to scale. You can't scale if you don't know what works exactly. When you do know what works, the system gets more and more intelligent to the point where you're making 20 times more than what you're making today because you built up a year or 2 years or 3 years of super quality, high quality data exactly on what people in your market pay off, which ones don't, which ones you want to do 10 times more of, and which ones you want to do less of or eliminate. So this makes search ads work so much better. But furthermore, like I said, you can make Google Display Network ads work, which are very tough to get to work, with finding out exactly what websites to have your ads show up on and what ads should show up and like what the individual traits of the users have to be to make banner ads pay off. You can get that whole thing working for your company, and that'll double your sales for what Google search ads in itself can provide. Then you can double your sales again getting YouTube ads to work. Given the same concepts as I talked about here apply there in terms of finding out which YouTube videos you show up on, your ads show up on will work versus not work, and so forth there. So, and basically if you're selling, something specific like granite countertop installation, you can have on Google Display Network your ads show up on sites about how to pick the right granite countertop installation company. And the same thing on YouTube. There's specific videos about that exact topic. Why would you not want your ad there? It may not be quite as easy to get to work as Google search ads where they're actively looking to hire someone immediately. But with all the data, it tells you what people that are watching those videos or on those web pages are worth paying for, which ones aren't. So you'll weed out the part that doesn't work, keep the part that does, and that extra part that does, it took you a little bit of time to figure out what that part was. It's going to provide you a return for the next 5-10 years on an automated basis. It's a certain percentage of people that hit those web pages in your niche or videos in your niche are going to start coming into your site, and you're going to get the extra sales for them from then on. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up with that. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up / like, and consider subscribing, as I have a lot of other content on this channel about actual money-making strategies that you can make millions of dollars with your ads, running ads on Google, Facebook, Bing, and so forth for your business. All the strategies I share with you on this channel are all strategies I personally have found worked and are using to guarantee our clients results at our PPC management firm. So, and it's coming from somebody who manages dozens and dozens of ad accounts on an ongoing basis for clients. So it isn't the typical BS you're going to find elsewhere on YouTube from YouTubers who don't run ads at all, or people that run a couple campaigns, which that's not enough quality data to know what campaigns work in a general sense and for most people. So you're going to get the best quality data you're going to find on how to make money with ads online through this channel and in general. And if you like the channel, I also got a blog at guaranteedppc.com/blog, where you can also find writings from myself on how I guarantee results for our clients and what strategies we're using there. If you have any questions about anything I covered today, leave me a comment below. I get back to every single person who asks a question or has a concern and address those on this channel that come across or come about. I also help every single person that asks me a PPC or ad related question as well, whether or not it's related to the topic of the video. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a question or comment, and I will get back to you on what to do in your situation, because I like helping my viewers and subscribers out. So feel free to ask. I don't bite. If you're, instead of that, if you're just looking for somebody to help run your ads that can get you guaranteed results, that's exactly what we do at my PPC management firm, as mentioned just a minute ago. So ultimately, what we do is we guarantee you get a certain amount of sales increase from your ads as it sits right now before taking a fee. So if you're making 10 grand a month now, we'll typically get you to 20 grand a month before start taking a fee on our side, with the understanding of what that does is it shows you, it can show you we can actually get you results before having to really commit to us at all, but also finances your results. So instead of having to pay this big fee to an ad agency before you even know it works, we can get you enough results that once you have to start paying us, you've already made more than what we would get paid anyway. So it makes it truly a no-brainer proposition. Of course, we don't work with just anybody. You have to have a great product or service that's not lacking in anything but the right marketing campaign, and we will come in and help you crush it. And in fact, if you're looking to see how much actual results we can provide you, reach out to my firm. I'll give you an estimate, and I'll do that either way. Ultimately, whether we can work together or not, and I don't charge fees for that either. So reach out to me if you're curious and interested in working with my ad agency, where we can just take on everything to do with your ads, get your results, and do it on a guaranteed basis. As a side, we also offer templated ad campaigns. So if you're not looking to work with the full ad agency, if you're in a niche or market that we've gotten results in already, because we've worked in over 500 niches at this point in the last 15 years, we can give you the templated results in that industry, campaigns, landing pages, and so forth, as long as you're not competing with our current or past client geographically. We can give you the results we've built up for years in that market and just copy and paste those results in your account to get the same results for your your own company, which bypasses all the work and all the money it took to build up the learnings for that market to get those results, and just go totally around it. And to not do that, and where we have results in that, to not do that if we already got the results that you want in your market already would be silly. And of course, you could start up another campaign, use those results, start up another business, outsource the work to somebody else in your local area, like we've had certain other clients do, and make another extra side income for your business. So this is another idea, but given that we have results in so many different markets, and there's a campaign you could use to do that right now. Anyway, I'll wrap it up with that. If you have any questions, let me know, like I said, but I hope to see you on my next video, where we have another great strategy for you then. See you later.